Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Angry George, and in this episode I have a story I'd like to tell you. Fitting to the theme of the story I'm going to tell, I am playing the early access game Stranded Deep in the background, so dig in. This might be a bit longer than before. I think that almost every 10-year-old in the world knows the story of Robinson Crusoe, the castaway who survived a shipwreck and was washed ashore on an island and survived there for almost 30 years. But most don't know that this character is generally considered to be based on a real sailor, who lived on an island of his own for 4 years and 4 months, surviving against all odds before finally being rescued. Oh, spoiler right there. Alexander Selkirk was a Scottish sailor born to a shoemaker and tanner in 1676. As a young lad, he was always getting himself into trouble. When he was 17, he was summoned before the local church council for what they called indecent conduct in church. We can only speculate what that might have been, but he did not show up because he was gone to sea. When he finally came back, he has once again caught the attention of the church council for beating up his brothers. As you can imagine, he was probably a rather active youth in his youth. Yeah. But this is the story of how he ended up the inspiration for the badass who was Robinson Crusoe, or who is Robinson Crusoe. Selkirk was serving as sailing master under Captain Thomas Stradling on the companion ship to St. George, which was captained by the explorer William Dampier. They were sailing across the Pacific, and in 1704, after a rough passage through Cape Horn, they found themselves in a battle with a well-armed French vessel, St. Joseph, only to have her escape and warn the Spanish of their arrival. At the time, the War of the Spanish Succession was going on between England and France, so this was kind of a big deal. As events unfolded in the next months, Stradling decided to abandon Dampier and strike out on his own, taking Selkirk with him. This is where the real story begins. In September 1704, after they went out on their own, Captain Stradling brought the ship to an island known to the Spanish as Ma a Tierra, located 670 kilometers off the coast of Chile, for a mid-expedition restocking of water and supplies. Selkirk had grave concerns about the seaworthiness of their vessel and probably wanted to make the needed repairs before going any further. He declared so, and he also said that he would rather be left on the island than continue on a dangerously leaky ship. Suffice it to say, his wish was granted and he was landed on the island, including his personal effects. He instantly regretted his rashness, but Stradling refused to let him back on board. Such a prick. Good thing for Selkirk as well, because as it turned out, he was right about the ship. It indeed sank off the coast of what is now Colombia, and Stradling and some of his crew that survived were forced to surrender to the Spanish. They were then taken to Peru, to Lima, precisely, where they had endured a rather harsh imprisonment. And my personal opinion is, I take a deserted island any day of the week, if I have those two options to choose from. But, back to Selkirk. At first, Selkirk remained along the shoreline of his island, and during this time he ate spiny lobsters and scanned the ocean daily for possible rescue, suffering all the while from loneliness, misery, and remorse. Then, hordes of horny sea lions gathered on the beach for their mating season, and they eventually drove him to the island's interior. Once inland, his way of life took a drastic turn for the better. He had more food and supplies, obviously. Feral goats, which were introduced by earlier sailors to the island, provided him with milk and meat, while wild turnips, cabbage leaves, and dried pepper berries offered him a variety of spice. Rats would attack him at night, though, but he was able to find a solution for that when he domesticated and lived with some feral cats that were living on the island as well. So he was a thinker. Selkirk then proved quite resourceful in using materials that he found on the island. He forged a new knife out of barrel hoops, which were left on the beach, and he built 2 huts out of pepper trees, one of which he used for cooking and the other where he slept. And he employed his musket to hunt goats and his knife to clean their carcasses. But as his gunpowder dwindled, he had to chase prey on foot. And during one such case, he was badly injured when he tumbled off a cliff, lying helpless and unable to move for about a day. Luckily, his prey, probably a mountain goat or a feral goat, cushioned his fall and probably spared him a broken back at that point. His childhood lessons learned from his father, who was a tanner, served him quite well at this point in life, because when his clothes wore out, he could just make new ones out of hair-covered goatskins by using a nail for sewing. Also, as his shoes became unusable, he had no need to replace them because his toughened, calloused feet made protection rather unnecessary. But during his sojourn on the island, 2 vessels came to anchor. Unfortunately for him, both were Spanish, and as a Scotsman and a privateer, he risked a grim fate if captured and therefore tried to hide himself. On one occasion, he was spotted and chased by a group of sailors from one of the ships. His pursuers then had to answer nature's call and had to go pee, and they peed around a tree up on which he was hiding. But they did not discover him, they were frustrated, and they gave up and sailed away. Selkirk's long-awaited deliverance came on the 2nd of February 1907 by way of Duke, a privateering ship piloted by William Dampier, who we remember from 4 years and 4 months before. After 4 years and 4 months without human company, Selkirk was almost incoherent with joy. Duke's captain and leader of the expedition was Woodes Rogers, who mischievously referred to him as the governor of the island. The agile castaway caught 2 or 3 goats a day and helped restore the health of Rogers' men, who were suffering from scurvy. Now, Captain Rogers was so impressed by Selkirk's physical vigor and also by the peace of mind that he had attained while living on the island, observing, "One may say that solitude and retirement from the world is not such an insufferable state of life as most men imagine, especially when people are fairly called or thrown into it unavoidably as this man was." Alexander Selkirk was herewith rescued. He returned to privateering and later on joined the Royal Navy and served as a master's mate, engaged in anti-piracy patrol off the west coast of Africa when, at the age of 45, on 13th of December 1721, he died succumbing to yellow fever. He was buried at sea. That was a rather short version of the story of Alexander Selkirk, who was in fact a badass. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment and a like so I know if I should or should not make another one of these story videos. Thank you for watching, and until the next one. I'm Angry George, and I'm out.